I am in fact very, very pleased to be here. And so I'm going to begin by saying I'm not here to listen to myself at all. I'm here to give you some information that helps you. We give information to you and to the people sitting next to you that's going to be useful to you, not just as you go forward on this ballot measure, but as you work with your family, with your friends, your neighbors, and in the line at the supermarket.
We seek to empower and educate folks to understand that we're the missing quotient, we the people. So at this point in time, we're feeling that it couldn't be more important to insert ourselves into the mess. We think that it's time that we acknowledge we don't have a democracy, and we really never did. And it's time we're suggesting that we try it. It's a good idea, democracy. So a democracy exists when the people make decisions. That's us. I do want to turn this over to one of our friends who is involved in the Protect Lane County Watersheds. There's the initiative 20-373 is an action that is confronting, exposing, and challenging corporate law. So this is exciting too because it's on the ballot.
We are very pleased that after a number of years of trying, we have finally qualified the Lane County Watersheds Bill of Rights for the ballot for May 19, not that long from now. And it is a county-wide measure, meaning that it will affect just Lane County, but it will help to protect all of the 5+ watersheds in Lane County in ways that have not existed before. The initiative, the measure that's on the ballot is there because of people power. We collected over 15,000 signatures over the space of 2 years in order to do that, to get it on the ballot. The small group of us from Protect Lane County Watersheds drafted the measure and circulated it within the community, and many of the people here helped to do that, which we appreciate. And so it would become a Lane County law, and let me tell you a little bit about what it does. So it is what's called a rights of nature based law, in that it establishes that the watersheds of Lane County have inherent rights. They have rights independent of our human profit and benefit, that they have the right to exist and flourish and thrive, and that they should be free from any kind of contamination or harm from various corporate activities. The corporate activity, the one corporate activity that we've spent a lot of time focusing on is, say, aerial spraying, where as part of clear-cut logging, timber companies come through, cut down all the trees, and then come back with helicopters for years to come and spray herbicides, which are neurotoxins and cause people to be sick and animals to be sick, and also just harms and pollutes the water. So the law that we have, the Lane County Watersheds Bill of Rights, establishes that the watersheds have a right to be free of that kind of contamination. It also says that we in Lane County have a right to clean, safe drinking water. And it seems like a basic thing, but it is important that we establish that. And then we prohibit any kind of corporate activities that would jeopardize those rights. So if somebody were dumping water in a river, that would be violating our right to clean, safe drinking water.
I will say some things that are critical of some of the industries that you just heard described. That doesn't mean, for example, and please don't go away from here and ever say that I am anti-timber or anti-urban development. What I am is I'm an economist. So I look at the benefits, I look at the costs. If the benefits exceed the costs, cut the damn tree down, because that's how we generate an improvement in our quality of life. The benefits are bigger than what we gave up. But let's make sure we count all of the costs. Corporations have a tremendous incentive to describe the benefits of what they do and to distract us, even to dissuade us and give us disinformation about the costs from what they do. So, A couple of things to begin. When you see that word economics, your brain does a really bad thing, from my perspective. Your brain thinks money. Because every day when you hear the term economics or you think about the economy, you think about things that are associated with money. You think about jobs, you think about your income, you think about what you pay at the grocery store, you think about what you spend for gasoline and all of that stuff. But there is a large part, and I believe the greater part of the economy is not associated with money at all. We don't know how to associate it with money. So, for example, if you have a child and you see that child is sick, and you feel there's no money there, or if you see your child jumping in ecstasy and you are elated as well, there's no money there. And yet those are incredibly important things. You get up and you have a really good day, there's no money there. A bad day, you enjoy the sunshine, you're really getting tired of the freezing cold and fog. Yeah. My house, it's terrible. There's no money there. And yet those are the most important parts of determining what our quality of life is, what our well-being is. And that's why we have economy, is to improve our well-being, to improve our quality of life. Some parts of it got started, go back into the 1600s, into London and Paris primarily. And it started to be involved with money. And it did some really good things. Really has. Also done some really terrible things. So, what I would like to do today is, I have two objectives. One is to give you some information that you might use to make you more effective as you talk to people about this, and about all of the issues that are associated with this. The second thing that I want to do is to give you some insight into what the reality is of the economy today. And it's very different from what it used to be in the past. And I'm going to have to then give you two versions of information that you can use for this. Because most people are going to be stuck in the economy of yesterday, but some people really want to look forward. I believe all of you are here looking forward into the economy that is coming very rapidly into our face. What do I mean? Up until now, we have generated an improvement in quality of life and an improvement in well-being through nature by killing it. We kill nature, we sell the carcass. We kill the tree, we sell the carcass. That's what a log truck is. A bunch of carcasses from nature. We kill the salmon, we sell it in the market. Right now, we are killing the climate. Right? So it's not an individual part of nature, it is all of nature right now. So that some people can make money for that part of the economy. I'm not a scientist, please don't represent me as a scientist, but I read an awful lot. And the science that I read right now, the lead author is from Oregon State University, a man named William Ripple. There are about 20,000 scientists that have signed on to the statement, and that statement says we are on the brink. Right here, going over the edge. We are on the brink of catastrophe. Of environmental and ecological catastrophe, of social catastrophe, and of economic catastrophe. Oh, wait a minute, those are really big, bad words. Yeah, they are. But what they're saying is that we have pushed nature so far that soon it is going to punch us back because it can't take it anymore. What they talk about is something they use the term tipping points. So that you have the climate, and it functions in a particular way. You know, the heat in the ocean comes in and affects the wind and the clouds and the rainfall that come onto land. And that's worked for a very long period of time, but now the heat being generated by greenhouse gases could actually reverse some of that, so it goes the opposite direction. The one for me that is easiest to understand is the ocean current, the Gulf Stream that goes up along the east coast of the United States, up along Canada, and then heads over towards England. And if you ever look at a map, you might think that England is sort of like Oregon, the same place on the planet, because they dress like us, they talk like us, they look like us, whatever. But no, England's really north. It's sort of across from Hudson's Bay. The only reason it's not really, really cold all of the time there is this warm water, warmed down in the tropics, goes up along the east coast of the United States and North America and delivers warm water to them. There are strong indications that that's close to collapsing. If it collapses, England doesn't produce very much food. North Europe doesn't produce very much food, and it really is the breadbasket for most of the world. And so you have huge percentages of our food production disappear globally. Well, it's easy for the scientists to say that because they talk about the science and heat and different models. It's easy for me as an economist to talk about that, but for me, one of the most telling stories of all of this comes from people called actuaries. Do you know what an actuary is? Anybody here?
Somebody who proves things.
Sorry?
Somebody who proves things.
Somebody who proves things, but more than that, they do risk analysis for insurance companies. What is the risk? Because an insurance company needs to know what the risk is before they issue an insurance policy and make you pay for that. The Institute and Faculty of Actuaries of the United Kingdom, really the beginning of actuarial analysis going back to the 1600s, their top folks, their top analysts are saying we are so close to these tipping points. Nobody knows when it's going to happen, but we are so close that we are advising our insurance companies, we're advising everybody else that will listen, and in fact, you ought to be listening to this. They are saying, in the next 20 years, we could have, maybe 50% probability we'll have, a 5-year period where these tipping points go, and when one of them goes, they will cascade. Have a bunch of them, so that we lose 20% of world gross domestic product within 5 years. Gone. 20% of the economy of the world is gone. Almost overnight. When that happens, you can expect wars, you can expect conflict, you can expect all kinds of really ugly things, not just in Minneapolis, but much of what you see in Minneapolis around the world. That's how close we are. A lot of very smart people looking at this, and they're finally starting to figure it out. That's the context that I bring to you today. That is the economy looking forward, different from the economy looking back, which is kill nature and sell the carcass. I would like for you to remember these numbers. 12% and $8,800. There's going to be a test. Yeah. I mean, it's tough enough for you to come and listen to an economist as it is, but now there's going to be a test? Well, we'll get through that. What can water protection do to us? This is looking back into the old economy, and one of the things it can do is it can save us money. The words of the day are, it can improve affordability of our lifestyle here in Lane County. How can it do that? It can do that. It can do that by nature can help us deal with these things. Droughts, erosion, water purification, wetlands, and green areas in our cities. It can do it and save us money. Here are some numbers. They don't come from Lane County, they don't come from Oregon, but you don't really need to know the numbers. You need to know that there are numbers, and we could develop numbers for Lane County if we want to. But research in Kentucky very recently said, if we let nature store water up in the watershed, deliver it so that we can get through the drought, at least a short drought, we don't have to build a dam to hold the water up in the watershed. And that will save us about 2 cents per cubic meter of water. That's a lot of money. That's why we have dams all around the Willamette Basin. And they've done that work for us for a long time. Just exactly that. The same thing is for floods. Okay? They can slow the water down when we have very heavy rainfall. And oh, by the way, we are going to have more heavy rainfall. We are going to have more droughts because that's what this warming is doing to us. Same thing for droughts and for floods. Can control erosion. If we have wetlands up in the watershed, if we have healthy forests, they slow the heavy rainfall so it doesn't scour all the dirt down into our rivers. If you ever want to know, you go out and look at some of the streams exactly right below a clear cut in the winter. Look at the water. It's muddy as heck because you don't have that forest controlling the erosion. But if we can let nature do that, we don't have to spend the money. We had a very high flood in 1996, 1997. Salem especially got hit very hard with the flooding, scoured all sorts of riverbanks, and they spent millions and hundreds of millions to get the sediment out of their water. Because up until then, hey, nature gave us clean water. We didn't have to spend much money at all. Same thing is facing us here. And then the U.S. FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, before the current administration, has estimated what are the benefits of these things called ecosystem services. So I want to focus on that term for a while. GDP, gross domestic product. That's how we measure the economy. How big is it? How fast does it grow? GDP per capita. GDP is the cash value of human-produced goods and services sold in the market. Human-produced goods and services. Well, nature produces goods and services for us all the time. Nature produces some really good water coming down the Mackenzie River that we all drink. Here. Nature does that for us. Yeah, we get involved. Humans did get involved in some of it. But I'll tell you, if the Mackenzie River didn't do that, we'd spend an awful lot more money. Well, FEMA has estimated what is the value of all of the ecosystem services we get from a wetland, not on the coast, an inland wetland. And it's over $8,000 per acre per year. For a green urban open space, it's $15,000. And if you want to think about that, think about going down along the river trail. Nice, rivers there, lots of trees, it's cool in the summertime. If we didn't have that, this would be a much less nice place to live. So nature does things for us, saves us money, improves our affordability. That's why the scientists are now saying it's different. One of the things that's coming up right now is that the projection was that each little increment of carbon dioxide would contribute to warming, one-on-one, but right now we're seeing that carbon dioxide goes up, temperature goes up exponentially. It's accelerating right through the roof. As it does that, extreme events are going to accelerate right through the roof. All of these bad things are going to accelerate right through the roof, and that's why we are looking at catastrophe, on the brink of catastrophe. Part of what this means is that the water crisis is now. I hate to use these words, but these are the words that the scientists say. And I know the rule is don't ever have a slide that has an awful lot of words, but I think it's important here. It says, demand for fresh water will outstrip supply by 40% by the end of this decade.
That's global.
That's global. And we're going to come back to that. You make sure I come back to that. The red part says more than half of the world's food production will be at risk of failure in the next 25 years. Yes, that's global. But don't think that here in Lane County, hey, we've got rain. Who cares what happens in, Ouagadougou? Because what happens in Ouagadougou affects the global market for food, affects the global market for health, affects the global market for military, and it costs us money. So we are no longer isolated. The food market, the food industry is totally global. We will pay for this. So one of the things that happens is that if we can start to control this here, get more local control, then maybe we can push back a little bit. We can't avoid it entirely, but maybe we can reduce some of that cost a little bit. By the way, this comes from the Global Commission on the Economics of Water. This isn't Ernie Niemi just made this up. Here's why it's going to be important to us. This is a really ugly, ugly map. But maybe it's so ugly that you'll remember it. What this does is it says summer flows in the 2040s, so in, 14 years? Summer flows in July and September. What's going to happen to them compared to what they used to be? And the darker the brown, the smaller it's going to be compared to what it's going to be, or what it used to be. The really dark brown is it's going to be at least 50% less. And if you've been paying attention, that's already happening in Lane County. That's one reason for this measure to pass right now. What we see now, what I can remember when I first moved back to Eugene a long time ago, summer started, after the 4th of July. That's when you really went out and sort of planted your stuff. Because if you planted it earlier, maybe you get a frost. Now it's in March. I had not had a frost until 2 weeks ago. All the way into January before I had a frost at my house. So we are now seeing dry places where the stream flow is going to be less than 50% of historical. And bingo, there's Lane County. Not only that, all of our neighboring counties. So they're looking for water. They're going to be looking for us if we have some. Here's a question. How much do you pay for water here? Anybody know? It's a trick question. You don't pay anything. You do not pay 1 penny for water. What you pay for is pipes and pumps and water purification, and somebody comes around and fixes it when it breaks. You do not pay for the water. And oh, by the way, anybody know where the Dalles is? Where's the Dalles?
Up north, east of the river.
Up by Hood River, up on the Columbia River. They've had a Google data center for several years. Google wants to expand it. So, City of the Dow says, hey, great, we're going to go up into the Mount Hood National Forest and grab the water. It's free. But if we take it, we're going to come back and give it to you. How many have heard about the proposed Amazon project out by the airport? On wetlands, I will tell you, and I know this because I submitted some comments on this. What they say, actually they haven't said, what people are sort of guessing is it's going to be a warehouse. But what if it's going to be a data center? These things use huge amounts of water. And oh, by the way, we've got the Mackenzie, we've got the Willamette. There's lots of water, and it's free. Nobody pays for it. All I have to do is take it. This is why. This is a new world. We've never seen this world. Your grandparents have never seen this world. And you're going to have to live through it. Okay? Okay, second thing. Water protection can provide us with really important things. And I use important. I don't use value. I don't use high price. I mean important. So this is some audience participation. What are some important things you get from water here in Lane County?
Irrigation.
You get it for irrigation to grow crops or to have a really nice lawn, pretty house. Anything else?
Recreation.
Recreation? Is that a big thing or a little thing? Sorry, is it a big thing or a little thing? Big thing. Good. Going to come back to that. Good answer. Okay. Anything else?
Fire protection.
Fire protection. We are actually learning now that if we have really strong wetlands, they can stop a fire in its tracks. Not every time, but more than if it's absolutely dry, if that wetland is just total toast. This is from something that is a parallel organization to the IPCC, the Climate Change Organization. This is for biodiversity and ecosystem services, and their statement is, both nature and nature's contributions to people, that's another way of saying ecosystem services, they are vital for human existence, our very existence, and for a good quality of life. Does water contribute to your quality of life here? Okay, imagine. Well, don't have to imagine. Have any of you been to Sacramento? Any of you? One of the things I like about that is when you drive down I-5, the forest is really there. Dense forest all the way through Sacramento. It's an amazing forest. Come on, people. There ain't 10 trees in Sacramento total, I don't think. The expectation is that Eugene, Springfield is going to look like Sacramento by the end of the century. Our trees are going to go. When we had that really hot period, the heat dome, 2021, scientists from Oregon State flew drones over the forest right outside us, and the tops of the trees were dying all the way up and down Western Oregon. It was just too hot for them to get the water up to the top of the trees to keep them alive, in part because summer had started so early. There wasn't as much water in the soil. So, some economic history. This goes back to 2008. A colleague of mine and a friend of his did some analysis of what is the importance of salmon in the Rogue River. There have been other studies about what is the economic importance of salmon on the West Coast or Oregon or Alaska, whatever. They wanted to focus on a river, the Rogue River. So, they looked first at what is the value, how much money is earned from killing and selling the carcass. And I will tell you that by 2008, up until then, a little bit afterwards, there was a fantastic debate among economists that this is the only way that salmon can be important to the economy. You have to kill it and sell it. Otherwise, there's nothing there. There's no money. So they said 1.4 million. At this time, we were starting to see new economists trained and saying, well, wait a minute, there's this thing called recreational use of salmon. And yeah, people go out and they catch them and eat them, so it's sort of like commercial, but a lot of times people just go fishing and they don't catch it. But they spend a tremendous amount of money. Well, sometimes. So they're saying that this is not the only way for salmon to be important to us, to our quality of life, to our economy. So they estimated what the value would be of recreational fishing for salmon on the Rogue River. And do you think that's a bigger number or a smaller number? Bigger number. Bingo! 10 times bigger. This was stunning to the economic debate that had been going on around the world, and is still going on in some places in the world, where you could only have an economy from nature if you killed it. Suddenly you can have it by going out and just enjoying it. But at the same time, some of you remember Save the Whales? How many of you participated in Save the Whales? There's hands go up. One of the great things about whales is if you look back, whales were important to the economy when you killed them. Some countries still important when you kill them. Iceland and Japan in particular. That's when it's really important for a whale, when you can kill it and sell it. But then you started to have out of San Francisco, wherever, weirdos starting to go out in a boat just to look at whales. Recreation. Their quality of life, to go out and see this animal that is so huge and so beautiful. And so economists started to say, well, what about this recreational versus the commercial killing value of whales? Tell us what you think. And surprisingly, a large number of people said, go to hell. I'm not even going to talk to you about what is the importance of whale. In dollar terms, it is too important for us to kill them. Stop killing them. We should just have whales in the world. It's called the existence of whales. What is the value, the importance of just knowing that whales are out there? And so you have people in Nebraska saying, important to me to know that there are whales off of the Pacific coast. I've never gone out in the boat to see whales. It's important to me that the whales are out there. Breaks my heart when I learn that they're dying. It's called the existence value. The existence value. What do you think the value of that is? It's 1,000 times bigger. 1,000 times bigger. So when you are talking about protecting water and all of the important things that water can provide people in Lane County, you should be talking about, talk about the money things. Save you some money, affordability, more money in your pocket. Talk about the recreation, because we all do that. A lot of people come here to do that. But there also is this thing. One of the ways that you do that is you go out and you ask people, and you very sincerely, how important is it to you? Unfortunately, the most common way to do that is to say, how much are you willing to pay to protect the whales? Or how much are you willing to pay to protect the salmon in Oregon? And like this gentleman was saying, an awful lot of people will say, I'll give you $1, I'll give you $1. But if 3 million people do that, that's $3 million. If 100 million people do that, it's $100 million. And we learned this with northern spotted owls. This research, these concepts developed right here in Eugene. The concepts of existence value with northern spotted owls, where we had people from the East Coast saying, I don't want to have those owls killed on federal lands. It's my land. And then you had Exxon Valdez. And I don't know if you remember, you look on the news, there's a picture of birds covered in oil. God, just break your heart. And so you literally had school students in Florida. Remember the March of Dimes? You go to school and you put dimes into the can for March of Dimes to help humans, human health. Mommy, can we take our dimes and give them to save the birds in Alaska? In Florida. People are never going to see a bird in Alaska in their lives. But it was important to them to protect the existence of those birds. So we collect that kind of information. It's tough, it's really tough research, and the business school economists said, if that's not money, then it doesn't count. But, okay, you and others have pushed back and said it's really, really important, so get the hell out of here. It's important. I do this kind of work around the world, and I almost never use the word value. Because if I say the word value, their brain, if I'm testifying in court, the judge's brain thinks money. If I say important, well, he knows or she knows that there are some things that are important that are not associated with money. This is the new economy. This is the new world. 1,000 times bigger. This is a map. It was completed in 2015, so it's a little old. My guess is that it's even more extreme right now. On the left is, in blue, where the water in streams is cold enough to support salmon and other cold water fish. In blue. What they projected is that by the end of the century, if we didn't have climate change, almost all of Oregon, except for a little bit over there, almost all of Oregon, the stream water would still be cold enough for salmon. The one on the right is with climate change. But that's before we had this acceleration. This is before all of the stuff going on that we're on the brink of catastrophe. And they're saying almost all of that cold water is gone in Oregon. And it's gone. Well, so what? What does that have to do with watersheds? I'm going to get to that. I'm using a really powerful word here. Theft. Corporations steal things from us. So here's a little bit of background. We have nature, gives us ecosystem services that give us important things and support our quality of life. What are some of those things? They give us water, cooling. Where do you go on a really, really hot day? You go out under the trees. There's evidence that if you have trees, quite a few trees, as the wind blows through that cold air, it can carry and cool as far as half a mile away. Fire protection, we had that. Health and nutrition. There's increasing evidence that especially for older people, get outside and walk in nature every day. That improves your physical health and your mental health. Not trivial things. Cultural identity. I went to school over in Harvard. I don't know if you've ever been in Boston. People at the end of my time there, people wanted me, they said, I can get you a job in the mayor's office in New York. I can get you a job right at the top of agencies in Washington, D.C. And I said, no, I'm going back to Oregon. Why? Because if I'm on the East Coast and I look up, I can't see trees. If I go to look at the river, it stinks. I can't look down through the river and it's absolutely crystalline pure. That's why I go back. That's my cultural identity. I suspect that some of you already, and I suspect some of you will, in your lifetime, identify yourself as, I'm from that place where we have trees and clean water. That's who I am. Jobs, recreation, and there's a lot more. So that's just some background. But now rich people come and take things. Weyerhaeuser comes and takes things out of the forest. All kinds of corporations come and kill trees. When they come and kill trees, they also kill water. We've known this for a very long time. When they kill the water, they also kill the fish. We've known that for a very long time. They also kill recreation. How many of you, when you want to go on recreation, say in July, June, August, whatever, you go up to a clear cut? Hey, let's go to the clear cut. It's so much fun. No, they took that from you. Again, they take cold, clear, clean water and fish. The timber industry does. The urban developers do. The urban developers out near the Eugene airport, they will take clean, cold water and fish from us. This reflects research done out of Oregon State University, but the chart, actually the figure was done by journalists. Very good journalists, by the way. What they say is, if you have a native forest, look how much water comes off of that native forest. Because it's really good at collecting water out of the clouds, holding the water when the rain falls, releasing it. If you have a clear cut, that water flow drops by more than 50%. So if you want some water in the stream, you want some water in the river down below Clear Cuts, and you look up the hillsides around here, you should be anticipating, oh my goodness, what's going to happen in September for a very long period of time. What happens to that water when it's in the Clear Cut, though? What else happens to it? It evaporates. Okay, what else? Evaporates. How does it evaporate? What makes it evaporate?
It flows downstream quicker.
No, what makes it evaporate? Climate change doesn't make any difference with this. Global warming doesn't change this very much. It really changes water because it makes that water evaporate. That's what's driving climate change. Hot temperatures out over the ocean make the water evaporate, much more water up in the clouds. They come out over Eugene and they dump on us some of the time. Or they decide to go someplace else, so we have droughts. So one of the things that we find in clear cuts, again, researchers at Oregon State University documented very clearly, the temperature of water as it goes through a clear cut is 3, 4, maybe more degrees Celsius hotter than it would be under those really cool trees back in the secure forest. Okay? So this is one of the ways that the timber industry takes cold water away from us. Again, I'm not anti-timber. I'm just telling you this is what happens. This is theft. Imagine if a rich person went into your bank. How many of you have a bank account? Have a bank account. What if they went to get their money, and on the way out, they took money out of your bank account? This is what they're doing. This is our bank, our natural bank. Here are some of the water costs specific to this issue. It affects urban water, agriculture water, fire protection, habitat for salmon, birds. What's happened to the number of birds around here? Down by how much? About 2/3. Okay, in the last few decades. Outdoor recreation, rural prosperity. What is the cadence that comes from the industry of we've got to have forest industry to have sound rural communities? We've got to have a timber industry to have healthy rural communities. That isn't true. I'm going to get to that in just a little bit. Affordability, future generations. The less water coming down really does affect affordability. It means that if you used to be able to just go down to the river to recreate, because it was really cool, and now you have to go all the way to the coast to find a place where there's enough water, you spend more money. And that happens for every family in the community. And this is why it's really, really important here. There are many things we can do to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide going up into the atmosphere. But there's so much up there now, we have to be taking it out. Otherwise, we are going to go over the brink of catastrophe. There is one tool that we have worldwide to take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, and it's trees. Fantastic beings. And the trees right out here are the best in the world. Or they have been. Maybe they won't be as it starts to get hotter and as we start to look more and more like Sacramento, but it has been. These are the best places. So when they cut them down, they are stealing our climate. That's theft of our climate. They don't pay for it. They just take it. This shocks quite a few people. It's actually been around since about 2018. On the first research that was done at Oregon State. Since then, there have been 2 or 3 other studies that confirm exactly the same thing. The largest single source of greenhouse gas emissions in the state of Oregon comes from the timber industry. It isn't gasoline, it isn't diesel, it isn't natural gas. It's timber. Because we are taking the timber that's in those trees, killing the tree. You're going to see some in the spring around my house. You see an awful lot in the fall. You see them burn the slash. Right out there at Clearcut, there's all these piles of woods and limbs and what. They burn that. That's carbon going immediately up. They burn the sawdust at the mill. They burn an awful lot to get the logs to the mill. That's why timber is number one. So in this state, the number one thing we could do, the economics, the science says, the number thing we could do, number one in this state, to fight climate change is stop killing trees. Yeah, electric vehicles are cool. Yeah, heat pumps are cool. Stop killing trees. Now, we're not going to do that, but we ought to help people understand that this is what happens. Stealing things from us and from the next generation. Oh! Did you remember the numbers? I forgot. I was going to give you the test before I did this. Two weeks ago, new research came out and said heat in the United States, not heat everywhere else, we're just looking at the United States, heat in the United States reduces salaries, has already reduced salaries by 12% for all Americans. 12%. Now, affordability, all this talk about affordability, there are two parts to it. It's what's happened to the prices. The other part is how much money do you have to pay? This has taken 12% away from us. The timber industry is the number one contributor to take this away from us in this state. Well, what do you mean? Think about this. When it gets really, really hot and dry in the Central Valley of California, what happens to the price of your vegetables? Go up. Gets really, really hot in Nebraska and Iowa and the corn crop dies. What happens to the price of your food? Goes up. And the same thing happens. What we know is it doesn't have to get very hot for productivity in manufacturing factories to go down or in office buildings. It doesn't have to be very hot. My personal example of this is out at Kendall Honda. My son, okay, I'm doing the fatherly thing, okay, way to go, Dad, wants to get a car because he needs to go to school. We go out there, we walk into Kendall Honda and say, well, we want to look at these three cars, and the man says, no, can't. Because all of our salespeople are old and overweight, and what we know is it's so hot out there, we've already had one of them collapse. So we're not having anybody else going out there onto the lot. The same thing is true for people who work on construction. Okay? I had a new roof put on my house, and thank goodness it was at the end of October, because if it had been in July and August, they would have said no. We can't put people up there, it's too dangerous. So it's 12%, but how much money is that? It's that. Every household has $8,800 less than it otherwise would. You think about what you could do with $8,800. You think about what you can tell your neighbors and the like, saying, hey, we've got to get this thing under control, and one way to get it under control, the only lever we have right now is water. We don't have any other levers to try to get this under control. And we're not going to affect Exxon. The only thing we can do in Lane County right now is water. But we need to do we need to kill nature in order to have jobs. And I fought this every day of my professional career. We now have a governor who's in the process of, well, we need to make Oregon business friendly. And I've lived through that zombie movie a dozen times, and what that means is let them kill nature more than we're let them do now. We ought to be very, very afraid of that. But the argument is that's a way to get jobs. Research that was done last year, looking at 2022 of outdoor recreation as an industry. Now, yeah, it includes golf courses. I get it. So it's not strictly out there next to the stream. But all of that outdoor recreation has water associated with it. Otherwise, you go to Tucson. Another trick question. Is that more or fewer than the number of timber industry workers out on the people who plant, take care of the land, and then kill the trees? So all the way from planters to loggers. Is that number bigger or smaller? Bigger. The total number of those workers on the ground in the timber industry for the state of Oregon is 8,800. We have more recreation jobs in Lane County than the timber industry puts on the ground for the state as a whole. And a large number of these jobs are out in the very small rural areas. You want to get out into the country? Actually, you can't because the fires and the Forest Service had to close. Go out through Oak Ridge. Go up the McKenzie. Go to the coast. Small communities. And oh, by the way, if you heard the news, I think it's 3 days ago, United Van Lines at the end of every year says, where do people move from and where do they go to? And the number one destination state was Oregon. But no, we need to make this business friendly because, geez, people don't want to be here anymore. A colleague of mine and I, a guy named Ed Whitelaw, some of you may have known him, he and I came up with the concept of second paycheck. If people in Nebraska want to go salmon fishing, they have to spend an awful lot of money to get over to Florence. If we want to go salmon fishing, you get in the car and throw the stuff in the back and go. That's a second paycheck from living in a place where the nature gives you so many goods and services, so many ecosystem services. That attracts people. It's important to people. It's not money, it's a second paycheck, though. That's why Oregon is like that. Now, Allied Van Lines, and Allied, as I understand it, has been focused more on, you may have heard Intel laid off, 5,000, 7,000 people, and other corporations in that tech sector have laid off more. So Allied deals more up in that area, around Beaverton. United deals more around here. Extra bonus points if you can identify the number one metropolitan area, the number one city in Oregon as a destination. I can't hear you. Eugene, Springfield. That's right. Has a university, has a river running through it. It's a really nice river. You can look down, see mostly clean water. This is research that's been done around the world. Again, a scientist starting to say, hey, this whole nature thing is breaking down on us. So these are results published in 2021, and what they found is that around the world, conservation and restoration of the ecosystem brings net benefits bigger than costs, than if you allow corporations to go out and do the reverse. We have so damaged nature that if we give it better health, if we prop it up a little bit, help it recover, we get tremendous ecosystem services out of it. We get very little if we go out and we trash it a little bit more. Around the world, this is the case. This is from Pennsylvania State. This year, investing in conservation of nature. It's like investing in energy conservation in your house. Nature conservation, water conservation, energy conservation in your house. Yeah, it costs you some money up front, but boy, does it give you a payback year after year after year. One way to think about it. They've documented that this is how it works around the United States. This is other research from 2025. This is from North Carolina, but it applies here. That when you have clean water in the streams, people really like to move there, especially for small towns. So if you want to have healthy economies in small towns in Lane County, you better get the water in the river clean. When I was working on the Amazon proposal out near the airport, Look back at the research on sprawl, urban sprawl. Some of you may know that Oregon's land use protection laws from the 1970s were developed expressly to prevent sprawl. Because we saw what was happening in California. There were massive numbers of people moving up here from California. The bumper sticker was, "Don't Californicate Oregon." We need to stop sprawl. So I didn't pay very much attention to it, but there's an awful lot more research on it. And the research in 2023 says sprawl costs more than the benefits you get, what it pays back to you. So you think about that Amazon plant out there. You're going to have roads so that people can drive out there. Where are those people going to live? They're going to live someplace else because there's no housing out there. So you're going to have an awful lot of traffic, an awful lot of traffic costs, an awful lot of pollution, and an awful lot of that movement is going to go through poor neighborhoods. If you're really concerned, hey, all for you, guy. If you're really concerned about fairness in this county, then you don't want to have sprawl, because sprawl is really terrible for indigenous communities, people of color, people who don't have very high incomes, people who are disabled. They pay the price. And so this comes from the United Nations Environmental Program. Again, they've looked around the world and they say, how important is this conservation and restoration? Are we giving up, kill nature, sell the carcasses? We're giving that up. That's got to be really bad. But they looked at it and said, no. Conservation and restoration gives you benefits much, much larger than what you give up. The latest estimate that I have is that for things like timber, urban development, agriculture, the benefits from conservation and restoration are 4 times, at least 4 times, what you give up. This is the future that we are looking at. This is not kill nature and sell the carcass. So this is a summary. Saves you money, improves affordability. Take that message out there. Provides us with important things. Think about the things that are important to you. Ask people what the important things are to them. Hey, I'm able to take my grandma, put her in the wheelchair, and go down along the river. Thank goodness. In the middle of August, because our house, we don't have air conditioning. Get her out there. Thank goodness for that river. Stop the theft. That's what the corporations are doing. And if you want jobs, and this is what you're likely to hear most, we've got to kill nature, we've got to use that water. Boy, I tell you, if one of those data centers comes here, the cost to us will be huge on what it does to the water. Thank you very much. I appreciate this.